Larry Kudlow, CNBC, Kudlow Reports, and Kudlow Radio on the Weekend is my colleague and co-host, and we're turning to Republican politics for the primary. Chiefly, we're going to focus on the Senate. However, special request from Bill Whalen of the Hoover Institution, who keeps the blog Day at the Races. I recommend to all because Bill is filing daily, actually hourly, actually maybe every 20 minutes, on the elections across the country for the Republicans chiefly, but he's looking at all races from all angles, including Mrs. Clinton. And I have a special request, Bill, before we go to the Kashkari-Brown debate for California. Larry requests your comment on the Rick Perry indictment, and today I believe Governor Perry surrendered, if that's the correct term, to the prosecutors and had his mugshot all over Twitter, smiling handsomely. Have you a measure at this point, Bill? Have you written about this? Are you planning to write about, does this improve Rick Perry's presidential ambitions for 2016? Good evening, Bill.
Good evening, John. Good evening, Larry. This makes Perry one thing that he was not going into this race, and now that is sympathetic. The idea that he is being ganged up within his own state, that people are playing politics with him, and they're just trying to take him down. Why? Because they want to ruin his presidential ambitions. And I would contend that when you're going out to states like Iowa and New Hampshire, that's a very potent thing to do. And, boy, hasn't Perry been very clever in how he's handled this. You mentioned the mugshot. It's a nice, handsome photo of him as a mugshot. No Hollywood walk of shame there. You'll notice all the way that he turned himself in at 5:03 local time in Texas. Now, why would he do that? Because that's when the evening news begins in Texas. And he had a sympathetic crowd outside the courthouse when he appeared. He just played this masterfully.
Just one more. I wrote a brief column on this. Could this actually help Perry? It's such an outrageous political measure by these crazy Austin Democrats. And as you say, Perry's been front and center. He's had a lot of strength and courage on this, and this could actually give him a push.
Larry, I think it helps him so much that I would actually even argue the very circuitous, logical thought that maybe Democrats are doing this on purpose because they want him to be the Republican nominee. So they're trying to buck up his standing that way.
I want to go immediately to California, where Larry and Bill right now. Bill's in the north, Larry's in the south. This is the Governor Brown, 3 times elected, going for his 4th election, a senior governor for all of America, and certainly a man who's been unchallenged these last 4 years by the Republican Party, now facing Neel Kashkari, a newcomer, a man who came up through finance, served in the Obama administration and also in the Bush administration at the end, and now challenging. And since he won the primary, it's been hard to hear Kashkari news here in New York. There's now going to be a debate. Does this favor either man, Bill, in your opinion?
Oh, it probably favors Brown in this regard. They set a date to debate of Thursday, September the 4th. And if you go back in the history of recent gubernatorial races in California, that's a month to a month and a half before these debates usually happen. Usually they happen the beginning of October, not September. So why would the governor want it in September? Simple reason, California voters are notorious late risers when it comes to politics. They focus in on a campaign with just a few weeks to go. So Brown's gambling on the fact that people just probably won't be paying much attention to the race. Also, doing it on Thursday, September the 4th, I looked at, that's when the NFL season kicks off. So actually, that debate will start at 7 o'clock local time in California, which will be when the second half of that game begins. So this is just news suppression at its best.
All right, those are great points. Let me ask you, Bill. Neel Kashkari wrote a piece in the Wall Street Journal about his homeless week. I actually wrote a piece about his piece. He spent a week as a homeless person, I think in Fresno or someplace in California, to show how difficult it is and to show the importance of a job. Now, is that something that will help him? Is his message crystallizing? Does he have a case against Jerry Brown?
He has a case, Larry, but he's up against so much just near-term problems in terms of money, in terms of stature, in terms of the power of the office, and just the recent performance of Republicans. I think it helps him, but I think at all times when you look at Republicans in California, you have to measure it as more of a 4-year challenge. In other words, not what's going to happen to you in 2014, but what it does for your chances in 2018. Yes, I think the poverty argument's a good one. We're becoming more have and have-not society. I just wrote a piece for the Sacramento Bee on this. Governor Brown gave a speech a few weeks weeks ago where he was lamenting the fact that wealthy Californians aren't having enough children. So he's aware of the fact that we have a poverty rate that's growing, but it's just not enough to do the job for Kashkari in this particular cycle.
I want to go to Alaska immediately because this has been peculiar from my observation, Bill, because it's a red state. It's a small Republican red state, and yet Mr. Begich, the serving senator, has been doing very well in the polls, anticipating that the Republicans would have a wave here to take the Senate. Has Mr. Begich enjoyed the fact that he hasn't had one challenger, and does he have a challenger who can overcome his incumbency?
He will face a pretty tough challenger in the form of Dan Sullivan, who I suspect will win tonight's primary. Sullivan is a former attorney general. He has the backing of the Chamber of Commerce. He's done a pretty good job of building a grassroots conservative outfit. And what stands out in this race is, in 2010, there was a Republican primary for the Senate, which was just cannibalism. Lisa Murkowski, the incumbent, was running against Joe Miller, who's on the ballot again this time. Miller is backed by Sarah Palin, and Palin made it her mission to take down Murkowski, which they succeeded in doing. Murkowski then got elected as a writing candidate in the general election. This time around in the primary, Miller's running a distant third. You don't see quite the same rancor as he did in 2010, would suggest that maybe the Tea Party is not quite as potent as it once was in Alaska. It probably says a few things about Sarah Palin's potency as well.
What is that? You think Begich can be beaten? He's got. Yeah. I'm just looking at Real Clear Politics. His polling average is about 45%, so he's well under 50.
Right. Yeah, sure, he can be beaten, Larry, in the theory of how high the tide rises. But, Alaska is a quirky state. It is, it's not in the lower 48. It doesn't quite catch the same winds as the rest of the country, and a very small electorate as well. So it's hard to spike a vote. So it might be a funny outlier in this election.
And the energy story would dominate ordinarily. Is it a major position for Mr. Begich? I note that he ducks all the energy questions.
It would, but, Keystone doesn't quite hit home in Alaska like it does in other states where it's a jobs issue in the other states. So, again, Begich may be lucky. He may avoid it here, but if it's a bad year for Democrats, he could get swept out. Remember, Begich is an accident of history. He's only in the Senate because he ran in 2008 against Ted Stevens. Stevens was indicted a week before the election, and Begich just nosed him out because of that.
So, go ahead,
Larry. No, Begich has been attacking Obama. That's very interesting to me. Red state Democrat attacking Obama.
He has, and this is a trend we see among the smarter red state Democrats. Mary Landrieu has been doing her best to distance herself from the president. So has Mark Pryor in Arkansas. They recognize an albatross when they see one, and so they're doing their best to get away from him.
Let's go to a layup here. We'll take a break because when we come back, we'll do New Hampshire and Minnesota. But the layup is Montana. The puzzling story here is Mr. Walsh's campaign blew up. But my measure of this, Bill, is that Daines is a very strong candidate, always was, and Walsh had an uphill fight. So the fact that he stepped out of the race really didn't change the scenario. Is Montana changing? It has elected Brian Schweitzer, and the present sitting senator is a very conservative, farm-like senator, Democrat. And is this a trend that's changing Montana to go so heavily red?
Well, it's elected a certain type of Democrat, John and Larry, and that's a Democrat who tends to be sort of a classic prairie Democrat, which means they're pro-gun. They're generally suspicious of government. They tend to have a bad haircut. They sort of look more like a high school football coach than they do a United States senator. So he's, that's not exactly what you have here in the Democratic candidate now, Amanda Curtis. But again, what you're seeing here is a division in the country between Obama states and unfriendly Obama states. Obama was competitive in Montana in 2008. He only lost it by about 4%, I think. He lost it by double digits, though, in 2012. So, again, as in other states we're going to talk about here, it's just unfriendly territory for not just the president, but the president's party, and just a very, very harsh climate to be in.
We're speaking with Bill Whalen, who keeps a day at the races for the Hoover Institution, and Larry Kudlow, CNBC's Kudlow Reports, is on with me. When we come back, we're going to do the heavy lifting because there are two races that are very difficult to see from this remove. One of them is in New Hampshire, where Scott Brown, a very popular figure when he was elected in 2010 in a special election, looks to be trailing badly in that race against an incumbent. And the other one, a complete unknown to me, I did not know, in Minnesota there was any race to be had against a popular former television comedian, now a serving senator who's going dour on us. Larry Kudlow, Bill Whalen. When we come back, we'll continue the conversation about the midterm elections for the United States Senate. I'm John Batchelor.